Imagine for a second the year is 1954, and in the morning of this sunny day in July, you woke up optimistic that today you would receive the phone call you've been waiting for. Maybe the countless sleepless nights that help you to master 3 languages, and the years spent in university would finally pay off and you would get your dream job. The phone is ringing. Maybe this is it. Finally, you made it. You got the job of your dreams. Now it's time to pack and say goodbye to your wife and kid. At least until you save some money to bring them over. After all, your new job is based on the other side of the world, in the distant Japan. You check everything again. Plane tickets, check. Driving license, check. Money, check. Right. It's time to go now. You give soft kiss to your wife and a hug to your little boy, and you head towards the airport. It was a long flight, but you're here now at the Haneda airport. Last time you visited Japan a few months ago to conduct your interview, the airport looked smaller, but now you seem to feel it looked a bit more spacious. Anyway, no time to waste. You head towards customs service. You hand your passport to be stamped by the Japanese immigration officer, but something doesn't seem right. The officer is looking at the passport and is scratching his head. Few minutes has passed and you ask if there's any problem. The officer asks you to wait for a minute. Less than a minute has passed and you see another few officers heading towards you. You are asked to follow them to a small room. One of the officers presents you with a map and asks you to point the country you're coming from, as they never heard of it. As someone with patriotic spirit, you get really upset and point on the map stating that this is insulting, as your home country has thousands of years of history and you cannot believe how they could be so ignorant. The officer looked at you seriously and asked you to read the country that you pointed immediately, not even looking at the map. You read the country and your heart sinks in. You cannot believe your eyes. You're confused and agitated. You turn to the officers and ask them if this is some kind of a joke. You pull your driving license and money from your homeland and show them as last attempt to convince them that your country exists, but to no avail. One of the officers stands up and asks you to turn around with your hands behind your back. You heard the clicking sound of the handcuffs tightening around your wrists. The main officer assures you that there is nothing to worry about and that you are not arrested, but you need to be detained until a thorough investigation is conducted. You are escorted to a grey building that looked like a hotel. The main officer removes your handcuffs. He once again looks at you and tells you not to worry. The last thing you hear is the door locking. Hello my friends, my name is Julian and this is Untypical Stories. If the little story I asked you to visualize seems impossible and superficial, let me tell you something terrifying. It actually happened to someone. This is the story of the mysterious man from a country called Taured. If you've never heard of this country, don't worry, no one has, as apparently this country doesn't even exist. But in July of 1954, at the Haneda airport in Japan, a man arrived with a fully legit passport from a country called Taured that shocked everyone that worked at the airport. Before I carry on with the story, please hit the subscribe button with the bell so every time I upload new video, you would get notified. But not only that, but this kind gesture would mean the world to me. Now let's find out what happened with the mysterious man from Taured. The story of the man from Taured begins quite specifically in many sources with a hot day in July of 1954. On that particular day, a man was said to have arrived at Haneda Airport, also known as the Tokyo International Airport. By all appearances, this man was just another passenger. The man has been described as Caucasian looking with a beard and as a smartly dressed businessman. Whilst his primary language is said to have been French, it has been reported that he spoke Japanese and many other languages as well. So far, there is nothing extraordinary to note. The extraordinary part of the story occurs once this man hands over his passport to be stamped and the Japanese immigration officer noticed something strange. Whilst the passport looked authentic, the country where it was issued, Taured, was recognized as non-existent, either by the officer or one of his colleagues. Concerned about the possibility of facing a trafficker or smuggler, officials began to question the man. When asked where he was from, he casually informed officials that he was from Taured. Not familiar with such a place, they pressed for further details. According to the traveler, Taured was located between France and Spain and had by then been in existence for over 1,000 years. When shown a map, it was said the man pointed to the area occupied by the Principality of Andorra and was puzzled as to why his country was called Andorra on the map. Both sides refused to give in. The Japanese officers insisted that Taured did not exist, and the traveler argued otherwise. He even produced his passport issued in Taured as proof. His previous trips to Japan and elsewhere did appear in his passport as he has claimed. The content of his wallet contained currency from several European nations and his mysterious country of Taured. Faced with the choice of what to do next, customs were at a loss. Nothing like this had happened before, at least not to them. The only real course of action was to investigate the matter further. Eventually the man was held by the officers as they were suspicious that he might be some kind of a criminal. They brought him to a nearby hotel for the night whilst they conducted their investigation. To ensure that the man did not escape during the night, 2 guards were placed outside his room. Japanese customs still had no idea if this man was who he claimed to be. The hotel he originally booked a room at had no knowledge of a reservation on his name. The company he was due to meet had no idea who the man was, or even the company he said he represented. The bank that issued his checkbook couldn't be found anywhere either. Convinced that they had caught a criminal in an act that he was yet to perpetrate, customs ordered the passengers to return for further questioning. The next morning, when the officers went to the man's room, they realized that he had simply vanished, as there were no signs of his escape. Additionally, all of his personal documents, which might serve as evidence for the story's validity, had apparently disappeared as well. One of the most notable explanations for this incident is that the man from Taured had somehow passed through a parallel dimension by accident and ended up at Haneda Airport. It has been suggested that based on his explanation, there is a parallel world which is similar to ours, with the exception that the locations called Andorra here is known as Taured over there. Similar happenings to the Taured mystery have occurred before as well. For instance, in 1851, a man wandering Frankfurt in Germany claimed he was from a country called Luxaria, a state found on the continent of Sacria. Another man who spoke a completely unrecognizable language was caught stealing bread in Paris in 1905. He had claimed he was from Lisbon, and although the man did not speak Portuguese, nor recognized Portugal as his homeland on a map, the authorities assumed he meant Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. Maybe, just maybe, random portals to these worlds occurs from time to time and people unexpectedly end up getting teleported to unknown worlds. But let's assume for a moment that those are fairy tales, as there is simply no evidence for those who claims they come here from unknown countries, continents or lands. For the continuation of this series, however, I have a story about a lady who had stuck in our world and she's still here. Her story is pretty sad, as the love of her life and his child were left back to her world, and regardless how many times she had tried to find him, she never succeeded. Please guys, let me know how would you feel or how would you react if you go on a trip and all of a sudden you've been told that your country doesn't exist. I'm very curious to find out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and I'll see you next time. Bye!